from the broadcast studio, hitting in the static. This ain't no bedtime story, son, it's prophetic. Encrypted signals from the shadows of the garden. We dig where the dirt got secrets, no parting. Microphone alchemist, scriptures with a twist. Peep the frequency, seeds in the mist. We drop bars like plagues, revelations in the cadence. Broadcasting truth while they trapped in surveillance. Wisdom with a watchman's blade. Fourth watch style while your whole system fade. Blood moons, Nephilim, echoes in the pine. Sasquatch stomping through the fault lines of time. We ain't mainstream, we ancient stream. Cipher with the prophets, decode the dream. So if you tuned in, better guard your mind. It's broadcasting seeds and we breaking the design.
Right. Stephen, tell us who you are and what you do, man, and where we can find you.
Absolutely, man. First of all, it's awesome to be on here. I love doing shows with you, man. You're one of my boys in the circle of podcasters. And I first of all, I'm just really appreciative and grateful for our relationship. But yes, everyone, I am Stephen, host of the Biblical Hitman. You could find me anywhere under the Biblical Hitman. That's MEN at the end of that. A lot of people say Hitman. It's like, no, that's multiple people in this organization. But you can find us on YouTube. You can find us on X, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, all of the social medias that hit home with everybody. You could also check us out on audio platforms as well, Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. And yeah, man, so my show is pretty much about looking at the Bible in a unpopular way, you know, something a little different than what you would kind of casually see at your church down the street. But I do resonate with all of the truth that comes out of it. You know, I'm a Christian. I've been saved for 16 years, and God just put me on this journey to really to motivate me to seek out truth, right? And to seek out a lot of information. And we're living in a very supernatural world. There's so many things that consist in it. And it's important to go out and to do your own research and to talk to multiple people, right? To gather all the golden nuggets that you can so you can put together the conclusions for yourself. So, yeah, man.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, we have a pretty diverse crew, I would say. Lots of like-hearted folks, some like-minded, but a lot of them, I try to keep away from people that are too much like myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
First off, I probably couldn't stand them because it's me. But, yeah, man. So, you know, we've been on each other's shows. This is what, I don't know. I'm losing count at this point, but what were the things that we've wanted to cover today? Literally, like you were talking to me about, something about fallen angels.
Yeah, man. And thanks to you, you had Gary Wayne on. I had YouTube on the TV, and I came across your episode, and I got back into that whole idea because I've been someone that's I've been impressed and I've been very interested with Revelation, how it discusses things, and it's got a lot of mysteries to it. But I've been trying to put some puzzle pieces together because it relates a lot to what we're going through right now. It seems like there's a shift, a spiritual shift, you know, and I think there's a duality that's playing behind it, right? Good and bad, that's kind of moving across this whole entire realm like a big chess game. But I feel that things are not good even when they show to be good, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, for
like
sure.
Things can't just be that good, right? But I do think God works in a lot of the situations and the things that have happened this past month, man. And I do think there's a lot of revival coming in the church, but I also think that there's a lot I think the devil works in the details with everything. The devil's always been a part, right? The devil, Satan, the adversary, Lucifer, right? There's many different titles for this idea. They've always been a part of blending themselves with the people of God, right? We see this in the Garden of Eden. The serpent was casually amongst Adam and Eve. You also have the Pharisees, which were the synagogue of Satan, right? So there's this idea that Satan is able to facade himself within God's people. And so when I see these technocrats and these politicians and in the foundation and the world that they're building for our future, they're really promoting a lot of Christianity right now. And so I'm worried that there's just a lot of baby Christians. There's a lot of people new to the faith that are getting swept up and vacuumed into this political swing, right? Because and it worries me because politics merging with religion is something that the Bible says kind of, be careful of that, right? Like we should be aware when government gets a hold of what the Bible talks about, what the truth is, and when they use it to exploit people, they use it to gain the trust of the people, and they use it in a way to manipulate their emotions and their
Yeah.
biased beliefs. So when you see the administration right now, and it seems like the whole nation is right wing, right? And I think that's where there's a duality here. I think there's good in that, but I also think there's bad, because when you have Trump, establishing Project Stargate, $500 billion investment, which is, conducting a whole brain network of artificial intelligence and a cloud system where it can retain data. You've got Palantir, who's been with making deals, with the federal government, right? They do contracts with the federal government, but the people, Peter Thiel, Alex Karp, these people that run Palantir, they've also been funding that right wing of the bird to get into the position that they're in now. I think what we're seeing is manipulation of the people through chaos and through just things that are dismantled through a lot of emotional state, right? It's almost like a Hegelian dialect that's kind
Yeah.
of going
Yeah.
on. And it makes me think that we're moving closer towards the possibility of maybe never having to elect for a government ever again. And what I
Oh
say
my.
that is I say that because Trump is actually the one that said it. He's the one that said it to a lot of Christians in his campaign when he was running for president in 2024, right? He was saying to the Christians, you probably remember the video. He's like, love you, Christians. I'm a Christian. You vote for me and you'll never have to vote again. And so when he said that, it really triggered something in my mind. I stored it as a file. So, so when I see the things he's gotten done with his campaign, he's gotten a lot of artificial intelligence, everything that pertains to that at the highest standard of where we're at today. He's involved with it, and it's being established and it's being done in America, and not only in America, but the United Kingdom. Trump just visited the United Kingdom last week, or the 17th, I think it was, I can't remember, of September, where he went there, and they're actually funding the United Kingdom to create a whole foundation of artificial intelligence for them. We see that in the digital IDs are being rolled out in the UK. There's something big is happening here, and I
Yeah.
think they're trying to bring in the Christian church or the believers, so that they don't get pushback from this group of individuals that are a part of the country.
Yeah. Like under false pretense almost, right? Just bringing folks in because they don't know what's actually going on, right?
Right.
I mean,
And I'm not saying there's not good things happening, right? I'm
well,
not
of
going to rule
course
that
there
out.
there are, but there's always bad with the good, right?
Right.
There's also just this kind of there's this just we talked about the shift initially, but there's a shift and conflict, right, between Islam and Christianity right now that seems like it's ramped up quite a bit when you talk about places like Nigeria and always Israel, right? Um, and the Gaza and whatnot, and like all this stuff just is piling on, and then you bring in prophecy. It, it sends people over the edge.
Right. Right. I mean, look at the deals that are being talked about right now all over Twitter. And I think that's why Twitter became a free speech platform, so that a lot of the emotional, just the emotional attachment with people, they can actually write it down on a platform where we're not actually supposed to look at all these kinds of opinions. By the way, on
Yeah,
X,
right.
it's not created for our human brains to interpret and to kind of receive and store, and it gets to us. But there's a lot of peace deals being talked about with the Middle East between the Palestinian and Israel. And what I see going on, especially after the Charlie Kirk incident, and I've had a guy on my show, Ben Baumgarten. He's really awesome. He's got End of the World News podcast, but he talks, and he actually made it aware to me that what we may be seeing with the narrative that Israel has their hand in everything, that they are the global cabal, that they are the puppeteer, right? Or the puppet master. I'm sorry, they're the puppet master pulling
Yeah.
the strings behind all the nations. And when you get into that, you can get into the idea that these principalities are ruling over this, and are the principalities involved with Israel? Maybe, right? If the idea of the synagogue of Satan is out there, for this nation, then maybe. Plus, we know the Rothschilds and are behind a lot of Israel. But the fact that everyone is kind of turning their eye on Israel right now, they're turning their backs on Israel. You saw Netanyahu go up at the United Nations the other day, and he was going up there to talk to all of the 193, I think it is, or 97 nations, but most of them got up and they left, right? They
Yeah.
all ghosted
Like
him.
2/3 of them.
Yeah, and so that's Ezekiel 38 and 39, right? Like that's this prophecy where the nations will turn on Israel. And that might not be the actual prophecy. Maybe we're getting to there, but we're definitely seeing precursors being played out with this whole situation.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Now, now we talk about, um, so one of the things that's got to happen is like a one world religion, right? That's one of the prophecy parts, right? Is that you have isn't that what they call it? A one world religion? Or is it
I think that's where in Revelation it talks about mystery Babylon, and this is like this one world new belief system, all under one government, right, with multiple kings.
yeah,
It's almost like Atlantis. Atlantis had a style and a religion to it. And that, like you said, we were getting into like fallen angels, and these fallen angels, they were the principalities of Atlantis, right? Because Atlantis had 10 kings, 10 governments, 10 kingdoms. When you actually look at Enoch and the 200 angels that descended upon Mount Hermon, well, those angels got broken up into groups, right? It says in Enoch that 20 of the angels were to rule over 10 of them, or I could be getting that maybe backwards. But still, when you simplify that, you're getting 10 kingdoms out of that. And so,
yeah,
and I think it's 20 out of the 10, yes. But what's fascinating about that is I think that's going to be a part of this whole idea of a new religion, this mystery Babylon. It's going to be that the scientists or the creators that helped engineer humanity are coming here to claim themselves as God, as Yahweh, if that makes any sense. And I think that that's what we're moving forward with.
yeah. I just did a episode on Deuteronomy, and it's that whole like Deuteronomy 32
Hmm.
worldview. And Ben talks about that a lot too. Just about Ben Baumgartner,
Hmm.
um, who's going to be on the show pretty soon.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah, so it's pretty cool. But we talk about in Deuteronomy, we talk about that's also where the principalities and powers after Babel broke up and God scattered them across the earth and put these lower G gods / Elohim, whatever you want to call them, um, over the nations, right? The celestial godfathers to an extent, or as Gary Wayne will say.
Right.
And so it's one of those things like some of this gets really confusing because there's a lot of overlap, especially when you start pulling out books like Deuteronomy and Psalms 82. And it's just like the Bible. It's why the Bible's really confusing to a lot of people, because you pull things from different books, right? That cover the same incidents, but they might not exactly be the same. But the fallen angels from that Enoch talks about as the, called the Watchers, it's kind of where it all started, with the forbidden knowledge and the corrupting humanity.
Right.
Right.
And if you look, yeah,
Go ahead.
if you look at Enoch, right? And again, I don't believe it's inspired scripture. I think there's some things we can take out of it, and it'll help us give us a better worldview of what's going on with the Genesis 6 story and all of that. We know that the Genesis 6, the sons of God, the B'nai Elohim, you can make a cross reference with that with Job. It also says the angels that were, amongst the Lord, and where Satan came up from the earth up to heaven and dwelled within them real quick to talk with God. You see that that's the same exact word, B'nai Elohim, right? So if I was a Jew and I was reading the Masoretic texts and the New Testament and Christ had not come yet, the one way I could cross-examine how to interpret Genesis 6 is with Job. And there's a lot of scholars that are out there, and majority of them do say that Job was written before Genesis. So now if I'm trying to study as a Jew in those days, or Hebrew, whatever you want to call it, I'm going to try and interpret Genesis 6 by looking at Job. And that's how you know what these things and their nature are. And I feel that the fallen angels, right, they're appearing in our culture today as aliens, right? This is where we get the alien talk. And when you dive deep down into some of the alien cults, right?
Yep.
And if you just dive deep down into the occult practitioners, right, which are like Aleister Crowley, Alice Bailey, Alana Blavatsky, and these other ones that are like really big heavy hitters in the New Age, Theosophy, and workers trying to bring in this Maitreya, trying to bring in this this Christ for the world.
The light bringer.
The light bringer,
Yeah.
yeah. Their views are to bring Satan into this world. Well, Lucifer. They use the term Lucifer because Lucifer's not a bad term.
The reinterpreted Lucifer,
Right.
as the light bringer, or not purely evil, I guess is the best way to say it,
Right. And I think they believe it's part of the existence of our entire realm to bring in this Lucifer. And I even think they may have an idea, or they may think that this could be of the dark part of the yin and the yang, right?
Yeah.
Or it could be reversed, but either or, they're trying to, what they believe is bringing in the duality of good and evil, and this is what will make you whole, if that makes any sense. And I think that as well is going to be a part of like this new mystery Babylon of some sort. And with the fallen angels, right? The connection with the aliens and stuff, and with the alien cults that are out there, everything's done through astral projecting to get a connection. Everything's done through either like ESP or some other sensory system that we're unaware of or we haven't been told about, where there is a connection to this spiritual realm. And these people, the occultists and the alien cult, leaders, are the ones that have these direct lines to channeling to these things. And the whole story that they're running is all so similar to Revelation. And it's similar in a way, but it's in opposite of what they're saying, if that makes any sense. Like they're saying everything you can take out of Revelation, but they're saying it's all for good, when Revelation is like, no, this is bad.
Totally perverted, right? Totally perverted.
Yeah, so it's kind of wild.
I think part of the issue that, it's something that you don't hear in like our circles talked about a lot necessarily, But there's this, and the first time I ever heard this was a few years ago on Tinfoil Hat, was the Mollies versus the Lucys. Have you ever heard this concept?
Mm-mm.
And that stands for the Malachians versus the Luciferians. And you have two distinct sides on the evil side, right? And you've got the Malachians who are really, they believe, I mean, think about Moloch, right? And like that they're all about destruction. They feed off of death, and especially children and innocence, right? And we know that this is a thing, especially child sex trafficking, and some of the folks, like, that's where they've linked like Epstein into this whole thing, right? So you have these two opposing sides that it's kind of like my enemy of the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And they've worked together for so long, but it's starting to fracture a little bit, which is good for us to an extent, because they govern systems of oppression through blood, sacrifice, and fear. Also, it's all about physical, visceral brutality, right? And then the Luciferians, like you had brought up, the deceivers is what you could call them, really, feed off of worship, pride, and rebellion against God. So very fallen angel-like, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or like we were talking about, the Elohim that were put over the nations, right? And that was the fall of most of them, was for their accepting worship, right? But they also, the Luciferians offer light, but it's what's the word? Counterfeit, right? Counterfeit light, like Gnosticism, occult knowledge,
Exactly.
false
Yes.
enlightenment, and then spiritual, seductive, and intellectual. So you have these two, they're technically opposing, but they're both evil, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever heard this, what I'm talking about, or not?
The concept is familiar.
Yeah.
For sure. And I think that whole, it resonates with me because I've been studying this specific alien cult. It's called Raelianism. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
I heard about him for the first time the other day. So
And again,
talk about that a little bit.
yeah. Yeah,
You
no,
know, even
absolutely.
if it's just a high level overview.
Yeah.
How do you spell it, by the way?
It's like Rael. It's like Israel, but it's Rael Ianism. It's a wild thing, and I see it making its rounds because I wasn't familiar to it. I came across my understanding from a show that I did with a guy, Greg from Strange Sauna. He told me about it because we were getting into the dating of 923. This obviously rings a bell with some people because of the rapture hype that we had not too long ago. And because there is something up with this date, but he was talking about it to me, and it's basically this guy's Claude Vorion, right? He's a French man, and he had an unaudible voice speak to him, some sort of ESP connection or something, where it basically told him, I want you to head out into central France and seek this dormant volcano, right? And so this happened in 1974 or 73, 74 time. But he goes there and he has an encounter with a spacecraft, when he's in this, messing around on top of this volcano, whatever. This bell-shaped spacecraft comes down from the sky, right? Lands right in front of him. Out of this ship approaches him a small, what we would kind of resemble an alien gray with almond eyes, long hair, and spoke to him and said that we are choosing you to be a messenger, right? Like a messenger for humanity. And these entities, they also called themselves the Elohim, which is funny, right? Kind of plays in with that whole idea. They almost look like that little sign behind you there, which is hilarious.
Right here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which we've seen depictions of a lot of these grays from occult members like Aleister Crowley, who drew the entity Lamb, right? This is the entity that helped him write the book of the law. Well, there's another similar connection with what happened with Aleister Crowley and Claude Vorilhon, where um, and we'll get to that. But basically, they said, well, I want you to go back to where you came, where your home is, get a Bible, and come back out here and meet us. So he goes back out and he has the Bible with him, and they actually take him onto the spacecraft now. And he's gone for 6 days. And so in this whole time frame, right, the 6 day time frame, they actually took him to their planet. They actually took him and showed him their civilization. They showed them their lifestyle and how they conduct things. They were telling him how the Bible is slightly off from how they well, this is what they basically told him, that we're going to reinterpret the Bible for you, and this is what we're going to reteach you, and we want you to go back to earth and share it with all of humanity. And it was basically that they were stating they were the scientists, right, that engineered us. There was a lab here on earth. That lab was the Garden of Eden. The first people that they created were Adam and Eve, but they were created to be empty vessels, which would obtain some sort of life to it. And this life we know is the soul. But they tell Claude that there is no such thing as a soul, and that it's a part of our existence to accelerate our technology so that we could achieve eternity in the physical realm. The whole religion that the Elohim believe is that there is no creator, there is just chance, and that there is just science, and that in order to achieve eternal survival, you have to create clones of yourself, and you would transfer your consciousness into these clones, and this is how you would live forever. And so Claude coming back, to Earth, which, by the way, their religion on their planet, these Elohim, is very sinful, right? If you're looking at it through a biblical view, it's very sinful, not in the way of violence whatsoever, but sexual immorality, which is so interesting because what did the Genesis 6 sons of God come here and do? They actually perverted, and they made a pact to create the Nephilim, right? Like
Yeah.
this, and they, and we know from Jude that some of the angels were casted into hell and chained up because of their sexual sins. Because in Jude, it makes that comparison of the things before the flood were in like manner to the things that were happening in Sodom and Gomorrah. Sodom and Gomorrah is known for their sexual immorality, right? So basically, these Elohim, they're reteaching him everything about the Bible, and he's to go back to earth and reteach this to civilization. But they left him with one thing, right? They left him in saying that our return is imminent, because since 1945 we've entered into the revelation times, the end times, because this had something to do with the Hiroshima bomb. This had something to do where humans were starting to kind of turn on themselves and use science to destroy and kill. Now, on this planet that the Elohim were living on, I think there was like 90,000 of them as a species, but there was sexual freedom everywhere, and there was nakedness. So if you could think of it, it's almost like the nakedness similarity to the Bible, right? To where there's just they don't there is like this idea of no sin, but they're also perverting that idea with the sexual immorality, that everyone is okay with having sex with anybody that they want. It's crazy because it's a sex cult as well.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
So many of these things seem to be.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Well,
Sex magic, blood magic.
Exactly.
And all the
Right?
things. Yeah.
So he comes, they left him one thing, right? Sorry, I'm jumping around here a little bit, but
No.
they left him one thing, and they said that our return is imminent. Before our return, we want you to tell the nations to build us an embassy, to build us an area where we can come back and land our spacecraft at, and that they can have a headquarters, pretty much. And so they said that one thing that would lead to their return is the acceleration in technology with humanity, and that they would have to create a foundation and establish a utopian empire, which I think is the beast system.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's so funny. There are so many correlations here with Revelation,
Yeah, it's crazy.
but they're talking about it in a good way. When we look at it and we're like, no, this is bad, right? This, from the Christian
Right.
perspective, we're like, this is screaming Antichrist. So Claude comes back to Earth. He comes back and is just totally like Revelation, right? Like he's just, his mind is totally flipped upside down. He starts going to different nations. And the first nation that he seeked out, which you know, publicly and objectively, this nation has rejected this man's proposal. But the nation that he first went to was Israel and Jerusalem, and right on the Temple Mount. So he went to the government there and was telling them everything that he had this revelation about, and I mean, he thinks this is real, this really happened to him. And there's been a lot of people that have studied this story that he's come out with. A lot of ufologists, a lot of extraterrestrial abduction researchers have analyzed this guy's story and says that it shows so many similarities with the 1950s and the 1960s and all the other stories, right, that came out around that time, which it's all connected. And so he allegedly, the official story is that Israel denied his claim. And Claude wanted Israel to build the third temple for the Elohim to come back. So where do we see how that fits in?
Duh.
And so, and you know what, man, just to segue from the story, I think that's probably what is going on here. I think all of these nations that are ran by these principalities, which are the Elohim, right? These aliens that they want an embassy established for themselves. I mean, I think it was in 2020 or 2021, an ex-Israeli military officer came out and leaked that the Israeli intelligence agency is in contact with a galactic federation. And so I think they promoted a fake story that was official news, that they said, we don't have anything to deal, or we don't have anything to do with Claude Vorion, or because it was getting so much hype, right?
Yeah.
They're like, he did approach us. He talked to us about it. We don't deal with this guy, right? But I think behind closed doors, I think they were like, I think he's onto something. And then I think they as well started getting in contact with whatever magi's or new age channelers or astral projectors, also feeding them more of the same narrative. So I think Israel at some point was like, wow, there's something to this. Plus, Israel wants to bring in their Messiah. According to the Elohim that presented themselves to Claude, they said that the main scientist that created humanity, that his name is Yahweh. So it's like wild, bro, how this is kind of going on. Another thing that he was told by these Elohim, these aliens, that basically who Satan was. And Satan was a leader of this group of because they so these aliens, they broke down their society into 7 different races, if that makes any sense. And one of those races are who Satan is, and Satan is the one who was against the creation of humans and all of biology on planet Earth. Which would that's this Gnostic twist, because I think I think biblically that's who God is, but they're making him look like a bad guy.
Yeah.
They're making him look like Thanos, if that makes
Right.
any sense,
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
Avengers movies.
Yeah.
And this is the psychological warfare that is going to be happening when this event may take place, maybe in our lifetime or possibly the next or the one after. Who knows where in the future? But I think this is where the delusion comes in. I think where the strong delusion, I think it's talked about in Thessalonians, it's where basically these things happen, right? This event happens where humanity gets impacted on a global level and they choose not to believe in the truth because they don't love the truth and they want to choose this other religion, this other idea of God. And I think that's who Antichrist is going to come here and be, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the overarching thing here with all these things, even with like Islam's the closest to Christianity, though, in a lot of ways, especially with Revelation. And a lot of people don't realize that. But the only thing that they leave out of all these things is Jesus,
Yeah.
for the most part. Like everything else almost lines up perfectly, but nobody even says or talks about Jesus at all. And even Islam believes that Jesus defeats the Antichrist type figure. Like they don't have an Antichrist per se, it's a different name, right? And they believe Jesus comes back and defeats that person, but that Jesus still is not the Son of God, or that they're not the Holy Trinity, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But that just kind of seems to be the overarching with all these different things that we're talking about. It's just the outright denial of Jesus Christ.
Yeah. No, I agree
And it
with that,
really
man.
simplifies it, right?
Yeah.
So,
You know what's funny is these Elohim, these ETs that approached Claude, they gave Claude a clarification of who Jesus was. And they said that Jesus is someone who was like Claude, that was chosen, right, along with the other 40 prophets that they've
yeah,
decided to
just
choose
a
throughout.
prophet.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, right? And then Claude came back and started to say, well, Christ resurrected. And so they had a story for that as well. They said that this is where the cloning comes in. This is where they cloned Christ, and then this was why the resurrection looked the way it did. Because
Gotcha.
you have to clone in order to achieve eternity. And you know what the thing is about these fallen angels and this religion that they're really working on? Not only do they want to be God, and they're going to probably present themselves as something that's pretty credible and pretty deceiving and seducing to be God one day here on earth. Not saying that he is or that they are, but they're definitely going to promote something that the whole world's going to believe. There's going to be miracles, right? We know that by the false prophet and
Yeah.
by the image of the beast. So I think that I think I think that with the idea of eternity, they're trying to build eternity here on this earth because they don't want you to go to heaven. What do we read about in Revelation where the people of the earth, right, who are going through God's wrath and bear the mark of the beast, where do they go? They go in the lake of fire with the false prophet
Yeah.
and the beast,
Yes.
right? So that's the eternity that they're trying to deceive you into. To think that you could live here on this planet forever, but in the other side of it, in the swing of things that they don't tell you about, is that your destination will be the lake of fire one day with them. So you see how they're trying to really kind of this
Yeah,
is a part of the religion.
I think the other tell in a lot of these things, and because they all rhyme, right?
Mhm.
Because it's not just like the Raelian, the Gnostics, all these different, things. The other thing that they always do, and because you brought up the beast system earlier, is that it always integrates politics, economy, and worship. The system that they try to impose melds all three of those, right?
Right?
And
Yeah.
Christianity doesn't do that. Not really.
No, no, no. And I think that's because, right, like, came as a sword to divide amongst all of these other things, right? Because you mentioned earlier that there's things that rhyme with
Yeah.
each and every mythology, religion, whatever. But Christ is the one that is God over all of it, and that's the divider. That's where he actually had to come here in human form, right? There's a miracle that happened. He
Yeah.
came, and there was a supernatural conception that took place, and God grew up in the fleshly form all the way till he was 30 something, right? I'm not all about this 33 thing or 30. I don't really know
Yeah.
exactly. We know how old he was, but God developed, right? And he did it in a way, I think, because he needed time to really bear all of this iniquity, and to really understand our nature. Even though he created us, I think he knows the nature, but he actually lived through it now.
Yeah. It was
And
tested by it,
right.
tested like we are every day.
Hmm. Yes. Yes.
And that's huge.
Yeah. And you know, the idea with the cloning thing, it's interesting because I think it's possible that they're maybe doing this. I don't know if it's through deep underground military bases or breakaway civilizations, or wherever it is. I just know that there's $21 trillion that has been missing from the United States government throughout the years. Something's going on. There's deep underground bunkers that are being built not only by elites, captains, the merchants, and the mighty men of the world, which we know in Revelation chapter 6, all the way down at the bottom, that when it's the time for the wrath of the Lamb, you have all of those groups of people there, m- you know, yelling for the mountains to hide them from the great and terrible day of the Lord, right? Of
Yeah.
the great and terrible day of the Lamb. And that I can only see that with what they're doing today, they have the money to do it. They're getting these things done. Maybe they know something's happening, coming, or maybe
I
they're
mean,
being
you have to see that even cloning, really, it's the only explanation for the Antichrist
Mm.
after he's killed, essentially, and then
Oh,
resurrected.
yes. Oh, dude.
Because we know that they can't actually resurrect anything.
Right. It's reincarnate.
It's reincarnated. So all that they could probably do is plug and play with the soul or whatever, the
Right.
spirit,
Right.
like they do with Nephilim or whoever. That's cloning as well, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what's funny too is the Elohim told Rael that what's also coming with their return is a geniocracy. And that this
Hmm.
geniocracy means, a world ran by geniuses. And so when you look at the etymology of genius, it goes back to uh Latin, Aramaic. It stands for jinn, daemonion, right? Like all of these ideas,
Yeah,
Greek,
yeah,
right? All this stuff, where another thing that connects with who the nature of these things are, right? The disembodied spirits of the Nephilim and the men of renown that used to rule in before the Great Deluge in the antediluvian period, where they were the gods of this entire place. I think,
yeah,
um, and they want that to be established again. I think that's what they're fighting for. I think that that's what they're moving the nations the way they are and controlling them and influencing them to get their agenda complete. Because I think why they told Claude, right, the Elohim, the ETs, why they told him that there needs to be a super advanced technological state here, and that you guys have to enlighten yourselves first, because I think the world is to build the beast system first, and then it's the Antichrist comes with his false prophets and his false Christ, which we know will arise from Matthew 24, that this will be something that they will now inherit and come into. You know what I'm saying? Rather
yeah,
than come here, and that's all part of Hegelian dialectic, by the way. That's the ultimate meta Hegelian dialectic, by the way,
yeah, yeah.
where they want the people to actually do this for them, so that when they come here, all they do is acquire it, and they're not seen as the ones building this beast system, because then
Right.
it would look, we know
It's
as
like, oh,
humans.
we just kept doing what you guys were doing.
Yes. Yeah. Or it would show authoritarianism, and people don't like that, right?
Yeah.
If they came here and started building it in this way.
Just another way to deceive, right?
Yeah. And maybe that's why all these things are happening, right? This whole,
Yeah.
a lot of things are passing through legislation from the events that are taking place, because I think it's the workers of darkness that are moving these chess pieces in the way that they are, so that these things can get done. It's opening my eyes up to really what's kind of going on a lot lately.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah. I just found it so interesting, man, the sexual immorality that they were talking about. The Bible talks about it to be sin, but in their eyes, it's pleasure, and that it's how life is supposed to be with the sexual morality.
Yeah, it's like pleasure overall, right?
Yeah, like we're talking about sex robots, and which I think personally that Elon Musk might be someone who is Aurelian. I think he might be.
Hmm.
I think he might believe in this religion. I think
Maybe.
you know
Yeah.
it's all fascinating, man, because it's a lot. It's a lot, and I think there's so much rhyme to everything, especially the mythologies with what we're kind of getting into. And it's um the Elohim, right? Also have said that the mythologies are who they are, but the mythologies are just a fabricated idea of who they are. That it's not
Yeah.
exactly who they are, but it's how man has created them to be, if that makes sense.
It does.
But on the flip side, from our point of view, that's where we look at it and we go, yes, these are the mighty men of renown. These are the sons of God. We see this clearly from our perspective, with how they used to rule in the antediluvian period.
Yeah.
And that's the flip with this. And it says also, because this kind of gets a little dark, and I won't stay on this topic too long, but those that don't bear the mark of the beast are, you know, beheaded, right? So there's going to be a war between, I think, people who are standing for the one and only true God, and the rest of this world that is believing that this is actually God presenting himself on earth, but we see that as Antichrist. So
Mm.
it's all it's all wild, you know. Um, the Raelian stuff was just wild when I
Yeah,
first came
that's
across
wild,
it.
man. And I had never I've got it written down, so I've got to look at it even more. But man,
Yeah.
it makes a lot of sense. I'm just so like I've been really like digging in to uh, I mean, it all ends up here, right? It kind of. That's how all this stuff goes from here, and
Hmm.
it all kind of ends up what we're talking about, especially with like the beast system, because you see little pings of it all over the place, and you're like, oh my god, like they're literally trying to do this, right? Whether it's implants or, but see, this is the thing: is like you have like this Raelianism, which brings it the same end spot, but they do it differently. So it's like, oh my gosh, you got all these competing, but they rhyme, right? Like
Hmm.
we've talked about, it's difficult to, and this is why at the end of the day, I guess we just don't know shit.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, and maybe that's why they're really trying to cause like an idea of transhumanism. They're trying to merge technology with people. I think it's because when this beast system kind of gets set in place, we know of the projects of MK Ultra. We know that there's mind control out there. We know that they've not only used sensory systems to obtain and to fracture the minds of people, but they've also used occult practices, and entities are also involved in all this. But I'm really wondering if the end goal for the technology being in the body is to have something that is a part of the user, right? Us, and that now a switch could be flipped to where we have been put in the back seat of our consciousness rather than driving it, if that makes any
Yeah, yeah,
sense,
for sure.
you know.
For sure. Yeah. I
I'm wondering if it's because there's a hive mind idea to this mystery Babylon,
yes.
and with the Babylonian religion, there's, Marduk was the god of the gods. And, it's like when these Egyptians as well, right? When they were running their societies, they had a slave system.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if the future of transhumanism will put us in as a slave at some
Back
point,
as slaves. I mean, why
you
wouldn't
know?
it? I think that they're trying to do anything that they can to keep you from, you know, the end goal, which is to, eternal life with Christ. I think the whole game is, I think at the end of the day, I think they know they can't stop it. But how many people they're going to be able to take with them?
Yeah,
And I
dude.
think that's what it really comes down to. And what's the most efficient way to do that? We've seen it. I mean, we just ran through a whole experiment, frankly, with the jab.
Hmm. Yeah. Psychologically, right?
Yeah, and and we hope not literally, because what do we, people that got it,
Right.
allegedly it wasn't supposed to be able to tinker with your DNA, but allegedly they say that's incorrect, that it
Hmm.
that it actually did. So what? This is one. Man, see, this just opens up so many other rabbit.
Oh, I know it.
Is
I
this
know.
type of stuff, like, because for me it's kind of like you get into the whole part of you know is there redemption for it? Can anything be redeemed? Meaning any kind of, like, can Nephilim be redeemed? Or, like, where does that go? Like, it's these little questions that nag at me about the people, like, and what really brings that up for me is, like, David's mighty men. 'Cause we know for sure, I mean, we guess we don't know for sure, but all things point that a lot of them are Nephilim, right? Or what we would call Nephilim, giants, lion men, dog men, all these different things. But they're fighting on Christ's side.
Hmm.
So does that mean that there is redemption there, possibly,
I think
or not? You
I
understand what I'm
see
saying?
exactly what you're saying because I've had Joel Thomas on the show before, and we
Yeah,
talk.
and that's Joel kind of brought this up in my brain too.
Yeah, like we've talked about this idea, and there wasn't a mark of the beast back then, and I think
No.
what really answers the question to what is it that brings you to have no redemption at all, and I think that is the mark of the beast because, like I said, I think it's going to have some sort of capability, or it's going to contribute to moving you from your decision making.
Yeah, and that's a good point,
You know,
because I'm going to pull up something that I just read the other day.
I think that's why they're pushing for this tech, but they're going to push it through in a certain way where it's safe and effective. Like we've heard that saying before. There's going to be a chaotic event going on to where,
Yeah.
hey, we need to do this because it'll this will never happen again if we do this. With this event that maybe is happening.
So what you're actually doing is this is like the ultimate choice.
Yes, I believe
And
so.
and this is literally like you choosing God above all else, right?
Hmm.
And if you refuse it for short term, and let's be honest, it for short term survival, but eternal judgment, it's kind of like you're reaping what you sow, right?
Yeah. Well,
Um,
think of it this way: like if they want, if the idea that the Elohim and the aliens like they want to make clones to put our consciousness in these clones, maybe the human body has something to do with this.
yeah, maybe.
If you're switching into something that is no longer able to have the life in it, right? Then maybe this plays into where, men seek death and they can't find it because they're getting tormented day and night by these things that were released from the pit, because this is part of the wrath of God. But those are the ones as well that have the mark. So I'm just theorizing a little bit, with
Yeah.
some of these ideas. And there will be something officially to 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 make where your decision will be the last decision you could ever make for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it comes into that, worshiping the beast, right? Um,
Absolutely.
right, right. It's all weird, right?
It is. But it's like it's so outside the realm of people understanding that
Mhm.
just so many people, this is why we get looked at like we're crazy people.
Oh, for sure.
And I don't care, whatever. But something's happening, right? That's not normal, or what we would consider normal.
Right, right. And I know how I mentioned way back when the show first started, where I think there's a shift, and I think that there is a false, maybe Christianity that's going on, or at least the people that are promoting this idea of
Yeah.
Christianity, they're not really Christians. I think this might be a contributor to the idea of maybe the falling away, the apostasy that happens right before the man of sin is revealed. I don't know. But if you're the adversary and you're tactical and you're strategic with your operations, he's not targeting the Hindus, the Buddhists, the New Agers, the alien cult members, everyone who is absorbed and grabbed by the tentacles of the world. He's actually like focusing on the people who are in the church. He's focusing on the church, I think, as his main opponent. And maybe that has something to do with kind of like what we're all seeing, because it's a feeling thing, what we're seeing. And the whole
Yeah.
Charlie Kirk, uh what was it, the wake or the funeral? What was it? I mean,
Yeah. The funeral.
there's fireworks going off. I mean,
Yeah. Like crazy.
someone
Weird.
made a meme, and it was when Stone Cold Steve Austin like walks out into the ring, and there was like fireworks.
Yeah.
and
It was
stuff.
wrestling, man. It was professional wrestling for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of cinematics behind it. Um, a lot of emotionally, a lot of strings to pull you emotionally. But there's a lot of good things in it too, But that's where I'm like, man, this is the duality is wild here. I don't know, sense it. Can't see it, you can sense it.
But it's like they're sowing seeds of just enough doubt on Christianity to cause a, real problem,
Mm-hmm.
because people start looking like, you'll even see it on like near death experience podcasts and stuff, where people go and they're like, oh, it's all about, some of them are very like Jesus. I met Jesus and he said, I am the way. Like, it's that simple.
Mm-hmm.
And that's your message to go back with. But some of them have this message of, like, see the God in you, right? And this and that. And it's like perverting, just little twists here and there.
Right.
In Christianity. I mean, in a lot of what you would call non-denominational churches do the same thing.
Well, I find it funny you bring up NDEs, because there was actually an NDE, and so with that idea that you're talking about, that maybe there's deception in the realm of NDEs, but not in the realm where Christ is king and Christ is the way, the truth, and the life. I think that there's players on both sides when it comes to NDEs, right? There's Christ could be involved in it, but then I think that there's things that masquerade themselves as certain things
Absolutely.
to present some sort of idea of enlightenment to you, where, like you said, people that are having these experiences and they're like, yeah, the God is in me. Well, I would say test that spirit. It's just like other friends that I have who do psychedelics. I've told them, when you see these entities in front of
Gateways,
you,
man.
Well, yeah, and like when you see these things in front of you that you've interacted with that have helped you like jinn throughout your life, I said, test them next time with Jesus Christ. And every single person that has done it, these entities disconnect from them in the middle of the trip like a phone call hang up.
Yep.
And then they come back with the same narrative that I've read about with this Raelian cult, where they say, hey, you mentioned the Bible. This is how we'll tell. This is, come with us and we'll tell you what it really means. And so they want to reinterpret the word of God for you because they're against it, in my opinion,
Yeah.
you
Right.
know? And with the NDEs, there was a story that I came across one time. This guy, he actually died in an operating table. He was presented by his a family member, multiple family members of him that came to him and said, "Hey, you know, come with us. Like, we're going to go and we're going to go to where we'll be for eternity." And I'm paraphrasing a lot of this. And he's going with them, but he just feels, oh, there was a light that was shining like behind him and to the right, where he can kind of see it out of his peripheral. And he knew that the light was where he was supposed to go or what he was meant for. But the family members were taking him somewhere else. And as they're luring him into this area, a pit opens up. And this pit opens up in front of him and he sees it and he's like, he said it was pitch black. He said it was blacker than any kind of black that's out there. And his family members were like, come on, we want you to go. And he like spiritually, he was like detaching himself from his own family members and was like, this something is not right. I want to go to the light. And literally his family members started getting pissed off at him, started getting disgruntled, and
Yeah.
and as he went towards the light, his family members went into the pit, and then boom, lights came back on and he was saved from the operation. And what's crazy is he ended up, going down the rabbit hole of probably other, ideas of religion and conspiracies, but in the end he found the Bible and he was like, this is what I felt. He was putting what he felt with the light in words, which is so funny when you read the beginning of John 1, you know, it says that Jesus in the Gospel of John, in the beginning was the word was with God and the word was God. And then just go down a little bit further and you'll see like, that the word is the light of men and it's in men, it's, so it's all this. So it's like it all hit him when he read that because that's what he felt. So my whole point is that there's deceivers in this spiritual layover. I don't know what it is, if it's a realm, if it's the second heaven or what, but there's an area before you can get to, the um where what destination it is your arrival will be at, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Man, it's a lot it's a lot for your brain to try and wrap around. It just, man.
Yeah, the NDEs. I want to get there's a book out there by John Burke, I think his name is, and he goes through a bunch of NDE stories. I think it's called Imagine God or something. Um, but yeah,
That's a
yeah,
pretty good
NDEs are
one.
fascinating, man.
They are. I mean, and there's so many, like, so many podcasts and stuff that talk about them. I wish.
Well, which ones? Because I want to kind of start listening to some.
Um,
And I think John Burke has one podcast, maybe. He's been on Sean Ryan's show. He's been on
yeah.
a bunch of people's shows talking about it. Um,
Me, hang on. There's a big one. The Other Side.
okay.
The Other Side NDE, which is gosh. course, it doesn't give me the host.
Mm.
I mean, you've got like the NDE podcast with John Messer, Chaz Hathaway, and Nora O'Dowd. Heaven Awaits. That's another one. That's like like stories that are sent in, so it's an anonymous narrator. I'm trying to remember the guy's name who does that one, but I don't know. It's like some of the stories I'm like, yes, and some of them I'm just like, give me the. I almost, when I hear this like stuff, this is how I know in my heart whether it's real or not, or false to an extent, is I get the ick. I literally get it. I feel it. Like, it just feels slimy, right? When they talk about, and it's always the new agey stuff, right? I'm just like, ooh,
Right.
negative, right?
Right.
What is that? There's some pretty good ones though. I mean, and some of them are really good, and some of them are like, holy man, they're like going pure Gnostic, right?
Mm-hmm. That's the thing, dude, about this life, especially with having more spiritual discernment through a biblical lens, and I'm speaking for myself here. It's just been very awakening throughout my past 16 years of my life. You really can kind of survey the battlefield on a whole
So let's
nother
see.
level.
The Other Side NDE, which this is people telling their story, so it's pretty cool. I mean, regardless, they had an experience of some sort, right? Unless they're complete liars,
Mm-hmm.
Coming Home, that's another one that's pretty popular. But where's the one? It's got a host, and he's been doing it for a while. If I find it, I'll send it to you. But
Yeah, right on, dude.
And it's pretty. Oh, there it is. Next Level Soul podcast. And that's the one where some of the stuff that they talk about gives me the ick, man.
Mm.
But a lot of it doesn't either. So
there's something there, something to it.
Something going on, right?
Yeah. Are you familiar with Chris Bledsoe, Ryan Bledsoe, the Bledsoes?
Yeah, I know that name.
Yeah, so I think it's Chris Bledsoe who's the father. I get them mixed up. But he wrote the book UFOs of God. And he's claiming that, and this is the sad thing, because I think it's another
Chris Bledsoe wrote it.
Yeah, it's another Gnostic view of these UFOs.
Yeah. He was on Sean Ryan too.
Yes. And so, there was some guys on Joe Rogan's show the other day, and they get a shout out about the topics that they're talking about. And that kind of stuff just pisses me off in a way, because the enemy is kind of winning there. Because now they're getting a shout out, and then maybe JRE is getting
millions of people, right?
Yeah, and then maybe JRE is getting intrigued by the conversation, and then this guy's going to come in and give him a whole inverted idea of what. Because I think Joe is kind of moving towards the truth. I think he's gravitating towards it a little bit in whatever way,
I would agree.
God's working through him. But that's the kind of stuff what I'm talking about when it comes to this discernment, where I can see that that's a chess move from the enemy, and to try and, bring awareness to, these people that are saying that these UFOs are angels of God. Now, I think there might be some sort of correlation with the UFOs and a lot of different other things. Maybe Project Bluebeam is being, played in a part of that. Maybe these things are spiritual, maybe they are angelic, but I don't think that they're angels of God. I think that they are, I think they're, to bring in this new religion, this new idea of a world government, which in the good book, it says that in the Bible, it says that this will be the beast system. So I can't see something that is of God contributing to something that will not be of God, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when Christ is like, how can a kingdom of itself cast, or what's that verse, where, a demon can't cast out a demon,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
um,
No, it doesn't work like that.
right. Um, so, because I've been getting into Project Bluebeam, and that's a very interesting take too, uh, because that kind of gets into some Bible verses that I've been, bringing in with it. I think that this might be something that contributes to these supernatural events that happen in the heavens, close as we're getting closer to maybe the birth pains, or even that may be a part of the birth pains. Um, I just don't know that answer yet, but I know Scripture does say that there will be signs in the heavens. So something is interesting. It's going on. The UFO stuff blows my mind because maybe the idea of the whole topic we kind of got into with the Raelians, and that these things are actual physical,
Yeah, for
and maybe
sure.
the technology really does exist. Maybe they really do have a mothership.
And
um,
maybe it's on its way here already.
well, that's Three Eye Atlas, right? And
Three Eye
that's the
Atlas, right?
whole idea of that.
I
Propaganda.
don't know what to believe there anymore, though. It's like you go through YouTube and everything's so clickbaity, and I don't have time to watch it all. Watch them all, but it's like, what is it actually doing? Like,
Mhm.
I know weird things are going on with it. Like, it's changing trajectory. It's also changing colors and doing all kinds of crazy stuff, right?
Mhm.
But yeah, wild, man.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. There's so much propaganda, and we're such in an age of disinformation, that really, what is the purpose of
I mean,
this?
super nefarious misinformation too.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Well, even just look at the misinformation from, the Christian community, for example, the rapture being taking place on the 23rd. How many people lost their jobs because they quit? How many people put their kids in orphanages because they thought they were being raptured without their children? These are actual things that actually
oh yeah,
happen.
and people, you don't hear about this stuff though very often. But it does happen.
It makes me think that it's psyop to get us. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
No, it is a psyop. That's exactly what I was going to say.
Hmm. And it's
I
and
think
it's
it's all psyop to divide us.
I think that as well, man. I'm wondering because I saw a clip of because who's the guy that actually started this rumor? He was a acclaimed prophet. Anyways, he's what was he from, an African area in Africa or something, or what country? I can't remember exactly, but that same area where he came from, there were thousands of people out in naturistic areas that were staring up in the sky on that day for hours. And that only made me think, I'm like, dude, these people would easily believe for Bluebeam.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because, well, see, and they prey on people that don't know the scripture, right? Um, which is frankly, let's be honest, in my opinion, it's most Christians.
Hmm.
Most people that call themselves Christians have no idea what the Bible says. Not in a real fashion. Like they've probably never read it from cover to cover.
Right.
And let alone have the ability to interpret what it's saying.
Hmm.
I'm not saying that I am some super Bible genius. I'm just saying, damn, you know,
Right. Right. No, I know. A lot of people are and it even says that too, right? That when these times kind of come, or maybe in this generation where people will just kind of cleave themselves to other teachers, right?
yes,
People that are
yes,
teaching them the word of God rather than them reading it themselves
yep,
and trying to study it and, dig into it. I definitely need to cover it more than I'm covering, right? I actually kind of, that's something I'm really trying to promote to everybody is, try to get into it if you haven't gotten into it. Give it a chance if you've never given it a chance. And I think it's the greatest history book of all time, and I think
Yeah.
it's supernatural.
And I absolutely agree. And like, that's one of the things I'm doing with this podcast. Every Sunday, I hit another book. Sometimes it's 2 books. And I look at it through a supernatural view, or some of the stuff. It's so much of it though. I urge people, I always send people towards, Ed Mabry and Faith by Reason, because he's got 20 years of work explaining all this stuff through a supernatural lens. Did an amazing series on Revelation with Nephilim Death Squad, and now they're doing Genesis. They're going through all of Genesis, doing the same thing. And he opened my eyes to a lot of stuff in the Bible, and looking at it differently, and going, oh my God, that makes so much more sense.
Yeah,
Because
Ed's great, man.
how often do people read the Bible and go, I can't read this? Like, think about the book of Numbers. It's like reading a census. It's literally like, it's like DMV paperwork, man. And who wants to read that? Right?
Yeah. Especially when you get into like the genealogies, you're like,
Oh,
oh my
yeah.
gosh.
Oh my God. You just want to, you want to go crazy. But once you realize, like, there's talking donkeys and there's other things like that, the snakes, fiery serpents, that's the other side of all of Numbers, that's wild. And then yeah, just, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a lot to take in, man. It's a huge book, man. It's so much to it. There's so much
But it's
history
not.
too.
We did this the other day. I did this example. I mean, this is, like the Bible, right? The Holy Bible has got all of it, right? One book. Now, obviously it's thin paper and, lots of stuff, but how many people have read these?
Is that right.
The Harry Potter series. Now look, book 5, year 5. Bro, it's almost the same size,
Yeah.
but they've read this like 4 times,
Oh wow.
right?
Right.
So when you actually see it, or things like this, people have read Graham Hancock's book, America Before. But when you grab that, it's almost, there's more information in this, but it's
Right.
you do the math.
No, it's a good way to compare it, man. It simplifies how easy it actually could be to get through it.
Could be. And you know what? I've always been a huge, and I kind of collect Bibles too. I've got this is an old one. That was my great grandfather, something like that.
Oh, nice.
But either way, yeah, it's not that heavy a lift. And you know what? There's so many tools out there now to help you through it. People are like, well, what version? How about just pick up any? I'm a big firm believer that, and I've read the Ethiopian Bible where I add all the other stuff, because I think a lot of extra canonical text has weight. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the word of God, but it's more of like another history. It'd be just like reading Plato or Socrates, perhaps. It's like Enoch, for example, isn't a canonical text, but everyone that wrote the Bible knew Enoch. They knew the story, right? So of course it has weight, especially when it's brought up in the Bible.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying, man.
So things like that, it's like this is an education problem sometimes, and people just go on Sunday and think that they're good, when that could not be farther from the case.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, yeah. I mean, I don't want to get preachy, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a choice. You're making a choice.
Right on, man.
So,
Well, I think it's pretty cool what you're doing on Sundays, right? Sundays
yeah,
that's pretty cool, man.
the Sunday Supernatural Bible series,
Nice. I like
something
it,
like
dude.
that,
I like
something
it.
like that.
Yeah.
And I think we got 5 episodes done. So, yeah, man. But I think I have a total of 20 something. It might be 30 something books, because not every book is completely supernatural. There's some of them get combined. So, yeah, but I break it between Old Testament and New Testament as well. So, yeah, so this should be good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll have
So,
to
yeah,
tune into
man.
some of those, man.
So, any last words? Anything else that you want to say? Because I got one more question for you when you're done with that.
Just let's be positive as the human race is capable of doing. I think positivity is super key to endure in times that we're going through. I think, especially with how crazy social media can get,
Yeah.
it's just stressful enough to be on it because your mind starts thinking in 100,000 different ways, which I don't think it was intended, to do. But if we could just share love with each other on a daily basis, let's, make friends, get outside,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. I think it'll help to
Touch
um,
grass.
yeah, touch grass, right? Like just it's something that's good to do and take ownership of it.
Absolutely. So the name of the show is Broadcasting Seeds. I know that was kind of a seed, but that wasn't a planted seed. So I want you to plant a seed for the audience to, maybe think about or look into or whatever.
Yeah, I would say give the Bible a chance, right? And do your research on it because there's a division going on right now in the world where you've got one bias versus the other, and I think that that's Christianity, the Christian views on and perspective on life versus everything else in the world. But give it a chance and seek out the individuals who have done the work, right? Like we're people coming up in the new era, right?
Yeah.
We're coming there. There's many people that have been here before us that have done many of the works that we're doing still to this day. And there's a lot of interesting things pertaining to the Bible. And I think there's so many different ways to bring you into that concept and that idea, and the reality of Jesus Christ. And I think that, with you giving it a chance, seeing that there's so many historical landmarks that the Bible's talked about that we can go back and revisit today, look at it as a history book, but also look at it as spirit, right? It's God's spirit
Absolutely.
being able to convey a message to you. And the best way we can receive that is by reading or listening and someone reading to you. Um, it's kind of like when the Bible talks about, whoever have an ear, let him hear. The word of God is something that's beautiful. I think it should be cherished more than it is in the world. But that's how when you get into the stories we kind of get into and we talk about a lot, it shows you why there's such a schism against Christianity, or there's just the world is against it. It's because a lot of this goes back to history. And when you get into the fallen angel narrative, when you get into the bloodlines that, branched off of that, and that there are families and principalities here that believe they have the divine right to rule over this planet, it all starts kind of falling into place. And there's so many supernatural things that consist of it. And it's awesome.
Yeah, it
It's one of
is.
the coolest movies you could read.
And that's one of the things I've always said, and you and I have talked about this. We need to get like Peter Jackson on the train, man. And it would be like the most epic, way more epic than Lord of the Rings could ever imagine if he
Yeah.
made a Bible movie the right way.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it would be absolutely insane. And every nerd out there would be like, what?
Yeah. I think Mel Gibson might be working on something. I don't know if
You
it has
never
anything
know.
to do with
Maybe.
like fallen angels, but it has something to do with like you know,
I mean, just
the
the Genesis
resurrection of
6
Christ.
story alone would
Oh,
would,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
I think maybe one of the reasons that it's not happening is because they know it would bring people to the word.
Right.
If
Well,
I'm not,
the one movie that they
they
did have a chance to make, which was Noah, but they flipped that into a
they flipped it.
Gnostic perspective.
Yeah. But it was still decent, but you can see where they tweaked it and you're like, come on.
Yeah, yeah. It's like the fallen angels were helping him build the ark, and then they actually,
What?
were good guys.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah.
Yeah. Either way. All right, guys. Tell us, I said guys as if it was you and other folk. Go ahead and tell us where we can find you again.
Yeah, so everything is under the Biblical Hitman. We're on YouTube primarily for video. We're on we do content creation on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, which is X, TikTok, all those areas
I
there.
can't call it X. It's hard.
I know it's kind of weird. But if you're not into all that stuff where that content is, you can check us out on audio platforms as well. You can check us out on Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, but pretty much on everything.
What's your
And
preference?
I like Spotify. We've got the most reviews on Spotify, but I'm encouraging just everyone, just give the show a chance. Check out an episode. If you like
Yeah.
it, drop a review. And I can only promote that for you as well, brother, because the reviews and the follows and hitting the notification bells on the audio stuff is like currency for us to
is.
move the show throughout the algorithms. And if you like what you hear, then you'd want other people to hear it as well. So just if you want to support my show, that's something that I encourage for the listeners.
For sure.
Yeah, man.
All right, man. I
Hey,
appreciate you coming on.
I appreciate you too, man. Thank you so much, man. This was awesome. I had a great time, and I can't wait for the next one.
Absolutely. All right, man.
See you, buddy.
Waves roll in, but the truth stands tall. Voices rise up, we can hear the call. Don't get lost in the noise in the game. Seek the word, it's the one true flame. One love, one life. Let the spirit guide. Truth in the storm, like the rising tide. Hold on strong, don't you be deceived. Grace is the gift for those who believe. Taking chains, they can't steal your soul. Heaven's promise is the final goal. Mark of a beast, world's false design. But freedom lives in the Savior's sign. One love, one life. Let the Spirit guide. Truth in the storm, like the rising tide. Hold on strong, don't you be deceived. Grace is the gift for those who believe. Stay watchful, stay faithful. The battle's not of flesh and blood, but of spirit. Walk in truth, walk in love. Until next time.